Right, now let's talk about logistics. And here's a little secret I will tell you. You've probably heard about all these letters of credits and bills of lading and weight bills. So the truth is that as exporters and importers, you don't care. Why? Because there are professionals, the transporting and freight forwarding companies, that their job is not only to deliver the goods, but also to prepare all this paperwork. Yeah. Like, of course, letter of credits, there is something that is prepared in the banks, but we'll cover that later. But most of the paperwork is done by freight forwarders. So you don't really need to do that on your own. Yes, absolutely. Now, there are several modes of transport. Of course, number one, marine or ocean transport. Inland waterway transport, it's more applicable for our situation. We have Lake Ontario. Highway transport, that goes trucks and smaller deliveries. Rail, air, courier, which may include 2 or 3 different modes of transport, but they just connected the good way and the delivery is fast. And you also have the multimodal transportation, where you again combine everything together, but not in the right fashion, not in the perfect fashion. So sometimes your container may wait 1 or 2 or 3 days until it gets loaded to the next mean of transport. Now, this is the important item for your product, and this is what's required in general in all the countries. So each and every product that you import or export has to have a label. The form of the label may be different. For example, in our clothing we have all this little tag attached, right? It could be separate, even a separate set of documents, but at least everything has to, well, this item has to be on the label. So, number one, the language of the label has to be the language of your target market. Here in Canada, it's English and French, so don't forget about that. English and French. They also labels.
Selling in Ontario.
Doesn't matter. Yes, has to be French. Yes, has to be in French. That doesn't matter. Even if yeah.
Still need French.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you tomorrow.
Right.
You have to put it both in French and English, or
Both in French and English, yes. It's not that complex. So, for example, if you see your, if you look at your skirt, it would say made in, I don't know, Bangladesh, and it would say like made in / fabriqué Bangladesh, right? So English and French are not that different. This for labeling purposes, of course. Yeah.
this is for outside packing when you transport goods.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And also, when your goods are sold, this label has to be there. It's either somehow it has to be either attached to it, has to be a stamp or engraving or anything, but it has to specify which country the product is coming from. It has to specify the name of the name or place and place of business of the manufacturer and importer.
But this labeling, you are talking about the package?
No, individual item. Let's say if it's a clothing or if it's a chair, like every chair has to have this information. Like if you turn this chair around, there's probably a little tag on the bag, and this is the label.
No, but then if you're importing a standard item, they want that manufacturer name or your importer's name, anything is fine.
Yes.
You don't need the supplier's name or anything like that, right?
No, the general guidelines is manufacturer's name and importer's name, and the address or some contact. Right now it's okay to put the website. So I've seen that in a lot of cases where they just put the company name and the website, and that's totally fine. All right. So the other component that has to be there on the label is the quantity of items. In case there's multiple quantities, you have to indicate that. So let me ask you to close the door. And also what's important to keep in mind, units of measure are different. Even if you look at the United States compared to Canada, we have metric system here in Canada and imperial system in United States, although historically it should be the opposite, but for some reason it's odd, but it's the case. So we have to provide weight and measures on, like, in the understandable fashion to your market. Like in Canada, you don't really put all the pounds or ounces, so yeah, you put here kilograms and meters.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
how come the grocery is sold in pounds?
Hmm?
Benefit, the grocery here, you go and buy the fruits or vegetables, they're in pounds?
Oh, we're talking about the like
No, I'm just saying.
yeah, we're talking about the labeling for importing.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I understand. But
Yeah, of course, consumers, all their practices are
it
different.
benefits them.
Yeah.
That's-
And actually, when I come to the store, I usually say, I need this kind of grams, I don't care how much. It's their job to figure out.
Yeah.
All right. Separate statement with additional information. For example, for electronic equipment or for appliances, if you have an instruction, of course you cannot put it on the label or attach it to the washing machine, for example. Yeah, you're gonna have to have a separate book with instruction, and you're gonna have to have it in English and French in Canada. Yeah. For certain industrial equipment, there might be an exception. If that's really like heavy, very heavy book that would tell you the guideline of operating the huge machine or some kind of construction machinery, there might be some exceptions, but in general case, all the consumer-facing products, let me put it this way, if your products facing consumers, direct consumers like you and I, it has to be bilingual. And if there are any specific requirements, for example, washing guidelines, how to wash the clothing, it has to be on the label. In Canada, there's here in red below, there is the act that is regulating consumer packaging and labeling. So it also regulates both domestic products and imported products. So there are equal rules for that. Now, a couple of words about packaging. So we've covered labeling, that all the products have to be well packaged to ensure that they will survive 3 to 4 or even sometimes in 5 weeks transit through different climate zones, through different environments. So this is very, very important, especially if you are in charge of that. Boxes are the most commonly used. They're made out of carton normally, or paper. Now pallets are made of wood, and you stack your boxes on the pallet. The pallets are used for forklifts. By forklifts, they load them into the containers, so it's like one on top of each other. There are different sizes of pallets, just for your information, different standards in the United States and Europe. And also in several countries they don't accept wooden pallets. Yeah, as far as I remember, in Germany they don't do that. So it's a headache. But anyway, it's not your headache; it's your freight forwarder's headache. But this is something you need to keep in mind, because even if you're, say, if you're an exporter, you're going to be most likely in charge of packaging. So you're going to have to make sure that the goods are properly packaged. Okay. Containers. There are two types of containers: air container and marine container. All marine containers are rectangle. The air container is not like that. It's like 5 angles. They have 5 angles to load it to the aircraft. And when you get a quote from the freight forwarder, you're gonna meet the acronyms like FCL and LCL. FCL means full container load. So if you have enough product to load the full container, they will give you a full container load quote. And if you have less, if you don't have that much of a product, they give you less than container, LCL quote. It's a common acronym, just I want for you to keep that in mind. because these people, they speak a lot of acronyms.
But hey, are they doing that also on weight?
Excuse me?
How heavy their products are for your containers? How much weight you can put in a container?
Oh, that's right. That's actually right here. So there are maximum capacities of the containers, and there are of course they're different between marine containers and air container. You cannot have that much of a weight to air container that you could do in marine container. And there is maximum dimension, maximum capacity, and I have it here. So just for your information. So yeah, feel free to use it as a reference point. It's actually good for your calculation because if you know that you're going to have, like in this case for 20 feet marine container, if you have more than 30 square meters, like you have 40 square meters, then you know that you're going to have one full container and one less than container.
Just a question,
Sure.
This room,
Yes.
how many square meters? Like I don't know, like comparing like what is like 30?
Like 30, let's say it's like 5, it's probably of something like
Yeah, 10 by 3.
4,
Wide and long.
yeah.
That's the size.
It's not 5 by 6 because it has to, like the,
This is a box.
it's the box, but it's not, it's rectangle, but it has to, the dimension, oh, here's the dimension, by the way. Right, 5 meters, 2 meters, and 2 meters. So they have to match the road, the width of the road of the one lane, because the containers are shipped. They can be shipped by rail or by car, by truck. So they have to make sure that it's safe for the traffic. So that's why they have a limitation. And there's a very interesting story actually. Anybody knows how, like, why our roads are, why railroads are specific, have very specific width? No?
Because they're stacked on one of top of each other. They're bogies. You see, they're very low, and they put one container, and the second one comes and it has things and it fits into right.
Yeah,
And
that's,
even in the storage in the yard, because
Yeah.
they have standardized these things, even on the on board ship.
yeah, that's right. But the question was like, why the difference? There's a certain difference between the two rails on the truck.
For shipping, you know, because if you get it from a boat, you have to put it on a train.
On the
Right.
rail.
Not from a train to a truck, you know, it has to be.
Does that do with the width of a cow strap?
That's right. So that's right. So the story is that when people invented the railroad, they had, for some reason, they limited themselves to the horse track. So for some reason they didn't widen it. They did it exactly the way they built roads in like 18th, 19th, whatever century. But anyway, that's something on the side.
All containers have usually the standard width. Sometimes they differ in height and length.
Yes,
But the
that's
width will almost
right.
be same. You will see them on the road also. But the reason being that stacking part and all that. This is what I had observed.
Yeah, stacking part. The thing, like stacking part was also important. The trains they can stack, and obviously container vessels they can stack. But you may not necessarily be able to stack containers on a truck, and the reason why is because if it's a low bridge, if there's a low bridge, you cannot just pass the low bridge. So that's why, in most cases, if you see the container on the truck, it's just one container. Yeah, they're designed this way specifically to overcome the bridges and tunnels. And there are a bunch of international standards, but this is not something that you need to worry about. Now let's go back to the packaging. If you have liquids, then you use either barrels or tanks. You use bags for some agricultural stuff like rice, for example, or grains. Sometimes fruits and vegetables can also go in bags. Now, refrigerating containers are important if you trade something like meat that can go waste in a couple of hours if it's not refrigerated. And you can feel free to use other protective covers, extra pieces of wood, extra layers. And it's important that if you ship to the areas or through the areas, or is your product sensitive to climate, don't forget to use extra layers. It won't add that much to the weight, but it will save the product.
I had a client years ago who lost her very first shipment because it came on the shoulder of typhoon season and she didn't have disinfectant. And it got molded.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
paper product.
Yeah. Well, that's what you use insurance
That's
for.
what she learned.
And that's. Did she have insurance, by the way?
I don't remember, I just remember her
Okay.
heartbreak.
Right.
Probably not.
It's a hard way, but if you don't have if you have insurance, it's a little bit less painful
And for
because you get up to 90% of the cost of goods.
for perishable items, especially fish, you have special companies which insure you. You even have the equipment and there are marks that if ever on the transition, cross the, because that is the food requirement. So if you are getting into a sensitive part of the food or fish and all, then it's better to engage them because they are the people who know exactly how to ensure if the product, especially is coming by road from Brazil to Madagascar.
Yes, what we're talking about, just for the
For
audience,
general
yeah, there are different like transportation services and specializing in the specific product. For refrigerated, for example, not just any transportation company will take refrigerated the product that needs to be refrigerated. So yeah, if you're dealing with sensitive products, then and so there are some specific transportation companies that deal with chemicals and flammable goods. So not just anybody can transport these goods, and these companies are certified by Transport Canada. It's not that straightforward. But, the freight forwarders, they have right contacts to the right transportation companies depending on the product. Now, packaging markings and safety markings. These are the markings that you put on the package, on the box or wherever your package is. Packaging marking indicates usually how the package has to be handled or how it has to be carried. For example, yeah, we know that I think everybody knows that this one means that you're not supposed to put the water or liquid on top of it, right? This means that it's the top is here. This is the bottom, the top is here, stairs. This means that this is the fragile good. And there's a bunch of other stuff here. I'm sure you've seen them a lot.
Yeah, for safety.
That's right. That's right. And for the safety, not all the goods have to be labeled for safety. But if the goods are dangerous, if the goods are flammable, then you're gonna have to put a specific label. Just for information, the batteries for the cell phones and smartphones, they are flammable. So if you, because I had a client who imported the spare batteries from China, they were obliged to put the flammable sign on the package. Lithium batteries are flammable.
And if I want to use just to scare people, can I do it?
I think so. I never used that. I've never tried that, but
Put
no. But you see, on the other hand, you see.
Put always the fragile one on.
Yeah, yeah. Like if
always
you,
the fragile.
no. I would suggest to go with this.
This is regulations or this is just depends on you?
There are different regulations. No, actually, this one is like internationally accepted practice. I mean, there's no regulation. And if you let's say if your box or your shipment won't have any packaging markings, nobody will like terminate. Nobody will hold your product. But what may happen is that on this long way, somebody will handle it improperly, and you're gonna get damaged. So again, there's no problem not to put any labels. No problem. If you say if you order something by, let's say if you buy something from the website in the United States, usually just coming with a box in a box. But that's it, and there's no label there. There's only like shipping slip, but there's nothing else.
Yeah, but that is for small quantities. I think there's a difference between small quantities and big quantities.
No.
No?
From this perspective, no. And putting safety marking inappropriately just will lead to the increase of attention of Canadian border service agency. You don't want extra attention of this part. Yeah, that's right. Because for flammable and dangerous goods, you have to have MS material safety data sheets attached in English and French. So you don't really want to get the question, where is your material safety data sheet? Anyway, now paperwork. As I mentioned to you, as an exporter and importer, you don't deal with a lot of paperwork. Actually, this paperwork is more related to you when you are exporter. When you're importer, you don't really deal with a lot of paperwork unless you deal with sensitive products like agriculture and chemicals or flammable goods, where you have to get certain paperwork to get the goods imported to Canada. We'll cover that later. But the generic documents are commercial invoice. That's number one. And there's a bunch of things that has to be included in the commercial invoice. Commercial invoice for international trade is not really different from the domestic one. Of course, it may be in a different language, and ideally it should also contain the destination or the destination addresses. And if you use intermediaries in your transaction, they have to have a contact of the intermediaries as well, so that the border service agency could track the shipment. The packaging list, packing list is optional. If you have a bunch of goods and you don't have enough space to accommodate everything on one page, feel free to attach the packing sheet. Packing list. And just keep in mind that this is also important. The right dimensions and right weights depending on your target country. Yes, in Canada we have a metric system.
But it would make the lives of the customs broker easier,
Exactly.
so it's advised. Yeah.
For the handlers,
And for you, of course, when you're gonna check the content against the paperwork.
It's just
Easier. Certificate of origin. Now, it is recommended that as an exporter you have a certificate of origin attached to the paperwork, or if you're an importer, for at least the first transaction, Canada requires to have a certificate of origin. So you actually have an example of certificate of origin in your transaction. The one that in your handout, the one that you have is Italian, example of Italian certificate of origin. The certificate of origin is a paper that states that this product was manufactured in that specific country, in that specific place. Now, of course, it's going to have to, in case of Canada, it has to be in English and French, at least in English. Now, some countries also request the certificates to be authorized by either local consulate. For example, in case of Turkey, the Turkish consulate, only Turkish consulate can authorize and sign off the certificates of origin if you ship the product to Turkey. In the same way, other countries require that the certificate to be certified by third party, independent third party, and the independent third party is usually a local chamber of commerce, like for example Toronto Board of Trade, or Ontario Chamber of Commerce, or Vaughan Chamber of Commerce. So all these chambers and boards of trade, they provide this service. There's a small fee for this service, but in some cases this is required. Now, if you trade goods between Canada, US, and Mexico, they trust the certificate of origins that are not certified by third parties, but that are prepared on a corporate letterhead. So they trust this signature.
But if something is coming from South Asia to Canada?
For South Asia, the recommendation would be to have a certificate of origin signed off and, or authorized by local chamber of commerce in South Asia. I'm not quite sure what's the proper name. For example, if there's something like I don't know, Shanghai or Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce, that would be the right place to go. And
So it's seller's responsibility to.
it's a seller's responsibility, yes. But as a buyer, you have to indicate that you would
I
like
need those one.
you would like certificate of origin to be there. Yes. It's important here to remember how to differentiate what's the country of origin. Now, the definition of the country of origin is the country where, first of all, for any non-manufactured goods, the goods like agriculture stuff, forest, fish, minerals, this definition is the first under the first bullet, which is anything that is extracted, cut, grown, caught, or harvested or raised in the country. Let's say in our case in Canada, as if we raised grains here, then they are from Canada. And if we are talking about processed goods, any value-added goods, so remember we talked about HS code? Yeah. So the rule is that the HS code of the product has to change. And in the place where there's change happened, this is the place of origin. I'll give you an example. Let's take a chair, for example, right? This chair consists of some plastic components and some wood components, right? The plastic components have one HS code. The wood components have other HS code. But when it's all assembled, when it's all put together, the desk has different HS code. And the HS code of the table is different from HS code of the source materials. So when the HS code is different from the sources, HS code of the sources, then it means that the new product has been created, and if the place of the creation is Canada, then the product is made in Canada. Same case with absolutely any other country in the world.
Like if I buy clothes from Bangladesh, but the basic textile material is from China,
Yes.
I have to ask in Bangladesh for certificate of origin. and
Exactly.
goods will
Exactly.
be from here.
Yeah, yeah. And the country of origin will be Bangladesh because
Finally,
even though
process-
even though the fabric is Chinese or Indian or whatever, it gets processed in Bangladesh. Each piece of products, also each piece of apparel has their own HS code that is different from HS code of the fabric, stitches or wherever. So, yeah, in this case, the country of origin will be Bangladesh.
But if you just brought fabric, and then you had custom garments made here, then the origin would be Canada.
Canada.
Right.
It's the same with custom household goods. You get all the parts from every country, and then they put it together in Canada, and then it's made in Canada.
Yes, that's right. One interesting example that was actually right here for the previous group. They had asked me for example, what happened if you harvested nuts in Canada, you harvested nuts in the United States, and then you mix them up.
They get two.
They get two.
than the other one again.
That's right. So they get two countries of origin. Yeah. In some cases it's possible, but normally it's one country of origin. Now, certificates again. As we were talking about that all sensitive goods and all the goods that get in front of the consumer and are subject to concerns about consumer safety, they get certified. And as we said, in Canada, you have to look at specifically at your case what kind of certification you should have, the product should have. Export permit. In some countries, some products are subject to export permits, but normally they are also agriculture, forestry, and natural resources. This type of products. Again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that there are additional fee for that, but it means that just an additional paperwork because they use it for control, whatever. Some have quotas and stuff like that. And obviously, the dangerous stuff like firearms and chemicals, they also get attention and get control. Same here about in terms of the importing. It's a rare case, but still, because the world is moving to the free trade, so we don't really, the countries use quotas and all the barriers lesser and lesser, but still in some cases you're gonna need some kind of import permits that you're gonna have to take because they have quotas on a certain product. You're also gonna need some embargo. For example, United States and Iran, they don't have a good relationship, so they pretty much ban half of the products from export and import. You cannot have any technological piece of equipment from the United States sold in Iran, and a bunch of other consumer imports too. So you still can meet this type of limitation, and you're gonna have to be prepared. And the information again, same resources. Your buyer or seller, they usually know that what exactly you need to do. Your freight forwarder and your customs broker. In some cases, your freight forwarder, and also trade commissioner service if you export. Not if you import, but if you export, the trade commissioner service. Now, who actually you need to help you along the way? Freight forwarders. So the role of freight forwarders to organize the shipment, engage transportation companies, and prepare all the paperwork. So all this bills of lading, they are in charge of that. You just give them information, they do this paperwork for you. Custom brokers, their responsibility is to clear the goods for customs, fill out a bunch of paperwork, and also collect from you the sales taxes and import duties. In our case, it's GST. Local delivery companies, warehouses. Again, if you provide this additional service, you should have contacts of delivery and local trucks or assembly installation companies handy, so that you can anytime, if your customer needs help, then you should be able to give the right contact.
So is there any party exists like who is doing freight forwarding and custom broking at the same time?
Yes, in many cases it's similar, but some smaller companies, freight forwarding companies. This market, especially in Canada, is very, very broad. There are huge international players, and there are very small companies, basically like one employee companies. So yes, larger companies, they can do customs brokerage at the same time. Others can. All right. Well, then the general recommendation is where to find these third parties. Use references, use the internet. So there's nothing wrong in that. But get quotes from at least 3 or 4 different service providers. This way you would have the better price and better condition. Don't just go with the first encounter. Here's the information that you should give to those third parties, freight forwarders, customs brokers, so that they give you the quote. I won't read aloud everything, but in general, this is the information about your product, the information about the weights and dimension, and specific instruction for care and handling of the product, and obviously the destination and the origin of the product, and of course, the value. So the value of the product is used for calculation of insurance and the calculation of duties, and the brokerage fees. Yes.
Usually, how much it differs in kind of cost if it is ship in comparison with air and sea, like if it is from same destination, same product.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference on cost?
Right. Here, the one thing to keep in mind that if it's a ocean shipment, they charge for dimension. If it's the air shipment, they charge for weight. Now everything depends on your product, whether it's the more like a kind of hugely sized
But this
product,
weight,
yeah, or it's the very like
Smaller
quick is
one.
very small, but it's very heavy. And also keep in mind that the shelf life, if you will, of the product, because in fact, majority of meat, for example, majority of meat trade is done by air.
So is the cost difference is huge or?
It is huge.
Huge
I mean, yeah, it is huge if you look in the if you get a quote, it's a huge difference. But you cannot at this point compare apples and oranges, and oranges. They're different. They charge based on a different ground and are used by very different products.
And ship, if you travel by sea, what is it, takes 6 or 8 weeks, whereas
Oh, depending on where.
transport by air is a couple of days.
Yeah.
But the difference in the pricing.
Yeah, but so I think you have to think about the implications of it. Like, do you need samples in a hurry? Then you send a small quantity by air. But if you, and if you have a fashion that's going to go out of style, you might need that fast, because that would increase your sales. But if you could wait because you're selling something that's standard,
Yeah, it's not.
The higher shelf.
This is just a continuation of the list of questions.